Painting a window with linseed oil paint is a classic application that protects the wood for many years. Before you begin, make sure that you have everything you need. Linseed oil paint in the colour of your choice. Raw linseed oil for diluting the paint. Balsam turpentine. An empty pot for mixing the paint in. A measuring gauge and pots for mixing. A stick for stirring the paint. Suitable paintbrushes. Tools for rubbing down and filling. Window putty. Shellac. Sanding material for rubbing down the substrate. Brush for cleaning. Cloth for wiping the brush and hands. Soap for washing the brush and hands. Before you begin, we recommend that you first read the application instructions and tips included in our brochure and on our website. Estimated rate of distribution per coat on untreated wood is 12 to 20 square metres per litre of paint. The drying time of the paint is 2 to 3 days under normal drying conditions. The optimal temperature to apply the paint is approximately 15 to 25 degrees Celsius. Make sure that you have good ventilation in the room you're painting in, especially for drying purposes. Any knots must be treated with shellac to prevent the resin from penetrating into the painted surface and discolouring it. The shellac can be poured into a practical shellac set to make the work easier. Then apply the shellac to all the knots. It is of no consequence if it comes outside the area. Repeat the treatment a second time after approximately 20 minutes. We start the painting with a primer. Open up the pot with a putty knife. An undamaged lid is easy to put on again and also tightly seals the contents. Stir the paint thoroughly so that it is completely homogeneous. Mark a pot for mixing according to the mixing instructions. In this case, we are using 35% linseed oil paint, 50% raw linseed oil, and 15% balsam turpentine. Then mix all the ingredients thoroughly so that the entire volume is homogeneous. Wipe the stick and pour the paint into a paint can. Brush the window carefully. If the paint has been standing a while beforehand, it is recommended to stir it again. Avoid dipping the brush too deeply so that you get too much paint on it, as this can result in it being runny and difficult to achieve a smooth finish. We're using a round pig bristle brush of high quality to be able to apply the paint evenly on all the different surfaces of the window. The paint is worked in with repeated brush strokes in the direction of the grain so that the paint is well worked into the timber and covers the entire surface evenly. Make sure that all the exposed wood is painted, including the putty rim where the glass pane will eventually sit. Paint the whole time following the grain of the wood. Finish off with long brush strokes to achieve a smooth and even result. Place the brush in a jar containing raw linseed oil to prevent it from drying out until the next application. Replace the lid and label the jar so that you know what it contains. It's useful to know what there is in the paint store so that you can easily find what you're looking for the next time you paint. It takes between 2 to 3 days for the paint to dry, after which all the surfaces are sanded. Then it's time to make the necessary preparations for putting in the glass panes. Warm the putty with your hands so that it's easier to apply. Lay a string of putty around the putty rim where the glass pane will sit. Put the glass pane in position and press gently so that it fits snugly on all sides. Secure the window pane with a pin on each side. Using a piece of tape around the hammer will prevent the glass from getting scratched. Apply the putty fairly liberally around the frame. Smooth it out with a putty knife to achieve a secure fixture. Scrape off any excess putty on the other side. Wipe any excess putty from the glass pane before it dries using a little balsam turpentine. Allow the putty to dry for about 3 days or until the surface has solidified before applying the next coat of paint. Clean the brush from the bulk of the linseed oil by wiping it and drying it off with a piece of cloth. Stir the paint before applying it. Use undiluted paint for the second coat. If you're careful, you could use an angled brush, for example, on the putty. However, if you're more used to it and have steady hands, you can use a round brush as it holds more paint. The paint should be applied a few millimetres on the glass. This will seal the joint between the glass and putty and prevent rainwater from penetrating into the wood. Also paint all the fittings using the same paint. Any uneven paint edges are dealt with using a razor blade once the paint is dry. Then you can also fill any unevenness in the surface of the wood before the final coat is applied to achieve the best finish. Wipe off the bulk of the linseed oil from the paintbrushes and stir the paint. Use undiluted paint also for the final coat. The final coat is the one that gives the final finish to the window. Apply the paint following the grain of the timber. Finish off the painting by smoothing the paint out using long strokes of the brush to achieve an even and good result. Wipe off any excess paint from the brush and then wipe it with a cloth. It is important that you rinse the cloth in water before throwing it away to prevent spontaneous combustion. Wash the brushes in soap and water. It is a good investment to look after your brushes as a good brush is expensive. A second-hand, well-maintained brush is also better to work with than one that is brand new. If you intend to continue painting in a few days using the same paint, it is not necessary to wash the brushes, but just let them remain in raw linseed oil so that the paint doesn't dry. Painting windows with linseed oil paint is a classic application that gives a beautiful result as well as unmatched durability.